What is up, guys? It's me, the ALEXX Prince, and I am here with an 8-part rebooking series, and that is rebooking NXT in 2020. And even though it says rebooking NXT in 2020, I will not stop at 2020. I will also add on to like what would be to come in 2021, 2022, even. Like some of these will go longer than 2020, but for the most part, the biggest thing that will come out of this rebooking is that I'll be rebooking pretty much NXT in 2020 as a whole, because 2020 was probably the downfall of NXT. And, no fault really to the talents, more of creative and just the fact that they were on Wednesdays. So I just decided this will be a fun thing. And if you guys have been wondering where I have been this whole time, I've been actually working on this series for a long time. So it'll be like an 8-part series. Each part will consist of different people in the, like, whoever I talk about in each part. That will be like the main focus of that video. Some of the things that I'll be discussed will be connected to one or the other, but for the most part, you kind of get the idea. I'm going to basically just run through the entire uh, rebooking of NXT in 2020. So this one, Keith Lee. I decided to start with Keith Lee because actually, out of everybody I discussed today, Keith Lee will be the only person out of this booking that's going to head over to NXT by the end of the to the main roster, I should say, by the end of the year. So after I'm done with Keith Lee, he is the only person out of this booking that will be going to Raw. Anyways, Keith Lee. Now, if you have been following me for a while, you should know that I made a rebooking of Keith Lee in 2020. That is essentially what we're gonna do, but tweaked a little bit. So we'll start off all the way in January, where he won the North American Championship from Roderick Strong, and then at NXT Takeover Portland, where he opened the show with Dominik Dijakovic. We keep that feud the same because that storyline was awesome. I can't think of anything else that was like truly amazing. So let's go with that match. And then afterwards, Dominik Dijakovic and Keith Lee, they kind of questioned their friendship, but for a good while, Keith Lee thinks that all Dominik Dijakovic focuses is trying to steal the NXT North American Championship from him, and then he's like, that friendship of mine doesn't, like, I will never hurt our friendship if that's what you think I am. And then Keith Lee decides, to think about it and see, like, is Dominik Dijakovic really my friend? And then there's a video where he gets his ass kicked backstage, but we think it's Dominik Dijakovic, but we have no clue who it is. And anyways, Keith Lee wants an answer as to who did it. And then Cameron Grimes showed up, and then he's like, oh, if you give me a shot at the North American Championship, I'll tell you. And Keith Lee's like, fine. And sure enough, they have a match, Keith Lee versus Cameron Grimes. It goes a good 10 minutes. And Keith Lee wins. And then it looks like Dominik Dijakovic, well, for starters, Keith Lee wants to know who beat him up. And then Cameron Grimes, he's like, I actually didn't know. I just thought I was going to win the North American Championship. And then Keith Lee is furious, starts beating the crap out of of Cameron Grimes, I should say. And then Dominik Dijakovic comes out and like pushes him like, dude, what are you doing? Chill. And Keith Lee's like, was it you? And then the lights go out. And turns out that the person who attacked Keith Lee is Damian Priest. And pretty much Damian Priest wants to be the next face of NXT, starting by taking away the North American Championship. And it's supposed to lead to a match at the upcoming TakeOver, NXT TakeOver Tampa, Florida. I believe that was the TakeOver we were going with, or it was going to be NXT TakeOver Tampa, Florida. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, this match doesn't happen. However, Keith Lee wants to give a random match to Matt Riddle because one, it will be a fun match, and two, it'll get people seated. And then anyways, we do Keith Lee versus Matt Riddle since Matt Riddle isn't doing anything since Pete Dunne is away. We do that match, the go home to WrestleMania. NXT will not be a part of WrestleMania, just FYI, other than Rhea and Charlotte. More on that later at a different rebooking. But anyways, that match happens. Damian Priest is pissed that he didn't get the shot, and now Damian Priest is now going after Keith Lee, and then Dominic Dijakovic, who is Keith Lee's best friend, they go at it, and then they do a number one contenders match for winner faces Keith Lee. And then the match happens, and then it happens on free TV. We do Keith Lee versus Damian Priest 1-on-1 finally, and Keith Lee stands tall, and it looks like Keith Lee is like off to a great start, having great matches. He already had great matches with Roderick Strong, Dijakovic, Grimes, and Riddle, and Priest. So who the hell is next? Well, just like in real life, NXT Takeover in your house is Keith Lee versus Johnny Gargano. So after the match with Priest, Johnny Gargano comes with a chair and then just slams it on Keith Lee's face. And then Keith Lee is bleeding. Johnny Gargano talks about how he is more cynical than ever after retiring Tommaso Ciampa. More on that later. But Johnny Gargano wants to go for the North American Championship. So at NXT TakeOver in your house, it's Keith Lee versus Johnny Gargano. And you could have Yim and LeRae interfere. It was fine. I didn't have a problem with it. Personally, I think the match was overrated, but what can you do is just like the type of chemistry that these two had. But the match was fine the way it is. Anyways, we do Keith Lee versus Johnny Gargano, NXT TakeOver in your house with Keith Lee retaining. Afterwards, Keith Lee is talking about how he is bigger. He's probably the biggest babyface of NXT, and then he wants to challenge Adam Cole for a title match at the Great American Bash, but they refuse. And then around this time, Kyle O'Reilly was MIA because he didn't want to get COVID. So, respect to Kyle O'Reilly if he wanted to do that. So, we won't deal with him. However, Roderick Strong never got his rematch. So, we do a rematch Keith Lee versus Roderick Strong for the North American Championship. And it ends with Johnny Gargano interfering. It looks like Roderick Strong might have the upper hand, but nope, it still was no good enough, and Roderick Strong fails to regain his North American Championship. And then Adam Cole's like impressed that even though Johnny Gargano tried to screw him over, he still retained the championship. So Adam Cole's like, yeah, you know what? I will put my NXT championship on the line. It'll be at the Great American Bash, title for title. And sure enough, at the Great American Bash, Keith Lee, Adam Cole, title for title. Keith Lee wins, and he is holding both belts. Keith Lee dethrones Adam Cole, and he's super excited. And at this point, Keith Lee is considered the biggest babyface, and he comes to point. So the following week, when Keith Lee won, Dominic Dijakovic was the one to come out and congratulate him. So that's what we're gonna do. So Keith Lee is gonna come out the following week after winning both belts, and he says, "You know what? I've been kind of a bad friend to Dominic Dijakovic, so to make it up to him, I'm going to do title for title, Dominic Dijakovic, Keith Lee, the main event of tonight." And the match ends in no contest due to the Undisputed Era interfering in the match. And then Finn Balor, out of nowhere, comes for the save because he's kind of been MIA trying to get back into the NXT and North American Championship picture. He's one of the people that's been chasing those belts for a while. Anyways, Finn Balor helps out Keith Lee. He grabs both belts, and then Keith Lee just snatches them away from Finn Balor, and then he's like, all right. And then he gets out of the ring, walks out, and he's in the entrance ramp. It looks like we're about to cut out, and then Johnny Gargano attacks Finn Balor, and then Johnny Gargano is basically saying to Keith Lee, we're not done. And then William Regal will not accept all this chaos, so he is going to he is going to make an epic fatal four way because this is Keith Lee's orders. Keith Lee wants a fatal four way at NXT Takeover 30, a 2 out of 3 falls fatal four way. The first fall will be for the North American Championship. The second fall will be for the NXT Championship. So even though I call it 2 out of 3 falls, I don't know what it's called, that stipulation match. But anyways, Keith Lee will be defending both belts in a fatal four way back to back. And yeah, Keith Lee, Gargano, Cole, and Balor, these guys could carry that kind of match. That would be an epic main event. Imagine NXT TakeOver, 30 takeovers, and you get a big blockbuster main event like that. Like, yes, I would stay tuned for that. And anyways, the first fall, uh, Finn Balor looks like he's about to pin Keith Lee. He does the coup de grace stomp to Keith Lee, but then Johnny Gargano sneaks out, throws Finn Balor out, and then pins Keith Lee. 1, 2, 3. Johnny Gargano is your new North American champion. And then the match continues the way it is. Then it looks like Finn Balor is about to get the upper hand. But then Cole is the one that's kind of like the underdog. And then Adam Cole looks like he's ready to be NXT champion once again. And then that's when Keith Lee recovers. Keith Lee pins Adam Cole. 1, 2, 3. Keith Lee is still your NXT champion. Keith Lee is standing tall. And then the NXT after NXT TakeOver 30, it's announced that that will be the very last NXT of Wednesday nights, which means the end of the Wednesday Night Wars. NXT can finally go and do their own thing and stay away from AEW because let's be honest, they should have done it the sooner the better. The sooner they could have gotten away from Wednesday nights, the better for them. And then they move on to Tuesdays. And Keith Lee talks about how he's excited for the new change of NXT. He's planning on staying here for a long time. And then Finn Balor comes out saying that, Keith, I almost pinned you and almost took the North American Championship from you. I was this close to being NXT champion, but it seems like you and I barely interacted in that match. So, how's this? If you say you are a big champion, why don't you defend that NXT championship at the very first NXT on Tuesday? Continuing on, the very first main event will be Keith Lee versus Finn Balor. On the first ever NXT live on Tuesday. And Keith Lee accepts. This is going to be a big marquee match, and now you're excited. NXT moves to Tuesdays, and you have a big match. Keith Lee versus Finn Balor. And the match goes, honestly, it could go 30 minutes. These guys could carry 30 minutes, and the match is great. Keith Lee pins Finn Balor. After the match, they shake hands, and it looks like Keith Lee is standing tall. And then the lights go out, and there's a time clock, those sand clocks, the ones that shoot. I forgot what they're called. Anyways, he sees one in the ring. Keith Lee is confused, and then Karrion Kross from behind puts him in a sleeper hold, and then Karrion Kross holds the NXT Championship, saying, "This is mine." Karrion Kross has been on a big dominant streak, being undefeated, being this big monster, and pretty much for the entire fall, we're building up Keith Lee versus Karrion Kross. Keith Lee will have some defense from time to time. He'll be defending that NXT championship from time to time, but Karrion Kross really wants Keith Lee. If he wants to be the best champion, he has to be the best of the best. And if Karrion Kross wants to be a champion, he wants the best face of NXT. And right now, it looks like Keith Lee is the best baby face. Keith Lee's on a tear, going after all the guys in the roster. And then finally at NXT TakeOver Halloween, I decided to change the takeovers for this rebooking series. We're going to do NXT TakeOver Halloween on October 31st because, fun fact, in 2020, Halloween landed on a Saturday, the same day that a regular TakeOver would take place. So this way, think about it. We haven't seen a TakeOver since August, September, October, almost November. So that's a good time frame to like wait because NXT TakeOver 31, honestly, like It felt very soon, and it had a shitty name. NXT Takeover 31. That was just lazy. So if you wait all the way until now you're just like excited because this match has been built since late August. So now you're just like, oh shit, we're finally getting this match. And I don't know if Halloween Havoc had this thing where you spin the wheel and whatever match it landed on, that's the match the competitors will be having. If that's the case, then let's make it a steel cage match. Let's do Keith Lee versus Karrion Kross inside a steel cage, and basically Keith Lee and Karrion Kross are just throwing each other through the cage. They're just dominating, just doing big man moves, and eventually it ends with Karrion Kross putting Keith Lee in a sleeper hold. Keith Lee is knocked out unconscious. Karrion Kross is your new NXT champion. Honestly, at this point, Keith Lee having a good run from July to October, that's a good, decent amount of time to make Keith Lee a credible NXT champion. Anyways, Karrion Kross is your new NXT champion. Where does Keith Lee go from here? So let's give Keith Lee the rest of the year off. Let's give him a time to develop, change his look, get some time off. And then Raw 2021, the very first Raw of 2021, Keith Lee has a match against whoever you want. Maybe Mustafa Ali. He talks about how he wants respect, not from, he wants to take on a new upcoming talent, whoever is out there, come out here now. And then Keith Lee comes out. We do Mustafa Ali versus Keith Lee. It's a good, solid match, a great way to show off who Keith Lee is. He comes out with a brand new theme song, not that shitty rock and roll jobber theme song. He comes back with a new theme song that he wrote, he performed, and he sang. So we'll do that. His attire, honestly, I wish he didn't change it that much. I wish he just kind of kept it the same way, but fine. If you want to give him a singlet, fine. Just made him look cool. And then around this time, unfortunately, Keith Lee gets COVID with Mia Yim and they are in quarantine. But this doesn't mean the end because Keith Lee will come back and unfortunately, he won't be able to compete at WrestleMania. That's not the point because Keith Lee, when he comes back after WrestleMania, he'll join the Hurt Business. Kind of like my what if the Hurt Business never split up. So we'll keep that booking, and then that will be Keith Lee for the remainder of his career. So that's gonna be part one of this NXT booking in 2020, rebooking NXT in 2020. So that's Keith Lee, part one. Part two, this is gonna be an exciting one, but part two is the Undisputed Era. What happens to Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, and Roderick Strong in 2020 in my booking? Find out tomorrow.